Knock, knock.
Nice job.
Come on, you gotta say who's there. All right, if we could all please take a seat. Board of my fellow directors, we're all ready? Then we will proceed to open the meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District for Thursday, September 26, 2019. Pledge to the flag is in order. Mr. Clark, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Absolutely. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, then. Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Monday, September 30th at 6 p.m. and Friday, October 4th at 2 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. Public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within the district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
It's your chance. All right. Moving on to the agenda, the consent items.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent.
I'll second it.
We've got a motion and a second on the consent calendar. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Aye.
Director Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Presentation items. We have a presentation for the Sacramento Metropolitan Public Safety Foundation on thermal imaging cameras. I imagine, Director Orzali, you're going to let the captain take the heavy lift on this, right?
I will guarantee you I'll let anybody take the heavy lift anytime, but in this case, I'm going to lead.
Okay.
So, Melissa, do I understand that the materials have been distributed, or do you still have them?
I still have some materials to hand out.
Perfect. Perfect. So as Melissa passes this material out, I'd just like to talk briefly about the Sacramento Public Safety Foundation and this initiative. This was brought to us, we were made aware of this particular piece of equipment by Chief Harms, and I remembered when I first came on the board, there was an opportunity for me to go through a house that had been donated that was going to be burned. And so, in all of the regalia, I showed up and we went through that experience. I wish every director had the opportunity to do that because it gave me a different perspective that has stayed with me. Crawling down that hallway, and the firefighter who had been put in charge of me said, "Well, Director, what would you like to do?" And I said, "Exactly what you damn tell me." So, crawling down that hallway where you can't see 1 inch in front of you, and you can feel, or I could feel the hoses on the ground, and that was it. They held a device I now know was a tick in front of me, about the size of a floodlight, and I could see that it was 300 degrees right outside my mask, so I didn't open the mask. But that's all I could see was the heat, and then when they pointed it at the ceiling, it was 1,300 degrees. So that imagery is really important in my consciousness about Metro Fire. With that, this device, the device I mentioned, you'll see, the previous model of TIC, is being replaced by this newer version. And I would like to pretend that I have some modicum of understanding about this device, but you would all know me, and you know I don't. So, with that, I'm going to introduce Captain Malinovsky, who has been our point person in working with this, and I'm very grateful for him being here.
Director, thank you for the introduction, and directors, thank you for your time and consideration on this. I'd like to go over a couple of the basics on what a thermal imaging camera is and how they operate, and then I'd like to show you the model that we're currently using, and then transition to the one that we are looking to move to. In addition to that, I'd like to talk a little bit about what model we're looking to move to in terms of how we use them. In other words, who has them at Metro Fire. So why don't I talk about that a little bit first? The director already talked about basically what thermal imaging cameras are. They effectively give us our sense of sight back in a building, in a room, in a compartment that is completely smoked out, so we can't see. In a structure fire, house, commercial fire, whatever it may be, you can put your hand in front of your face and oftentimes you cannot see it at all. A thermal imaging camera, if I'm holding one in my hand, would allow me to see everybody in this room. And it does that through infrared. It does that through temperature contrast. So why do we care about that? Well, obviously we want to see where we're going. It allows us to deploy more quickly. What it really allows us to do, we could go on and on tonight, we won't do that, but the primary thing that I'd like to talk about is search. And how does it help us with search? I think the answer is probably pretty obvious, but just so we can walk through it together a little bit. We come into a building, we can't see where we're going. We can't necessarily hear anybody because maybe they're not in a position where they know we're there. Maybe they're not in a position to yell out to us. Scanning the room with a thermal imaging camera assists us greatly with search. It allows us to find people, life in buildings. That's our #1 priority. The thermal imaging camera is a great tool. We've been using them for years. The way we use them at Metro Fire right now is we have engines, trucks, and ambulances. That's our model, basically. Each engine has 1 thermal imaging camera. Each truck has 2. To put that in perspective, each engine has 3 members on board. Each truck has 4. Ambulances have 2 people on board. There are 0 thermal imaging cameras on ambulances. So what we ultimately are hoping to do is put a thermal imaging camera in each seat, which would be one of the smaller ones here, and I'll pass this around to you shortly. The idea is more thermal imaging cameras allow us to search more quickly. There's a lot more that we can do with them, but this is the primary thing that we're looking at. So we've talked a little bit about why the search is important, and I think that we can all agree that that's a very, very important deal for us. With regards to the members, one quick story, and then I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the ticks, and I'll pass them around so you all can compare them. A structure fire, a house fire that I was on about 4 or 5 years ago, and Station 60's first in, which is in Sacramento City, but I was on engine 105. The first unit that was on scene of that fire, where 2 people were trapped, 2 elderly folks were trapped inside this fire, the first unit on it was a Metro ambulance. So we had 2 members on there who had full gear with breathing apparatus and everything, and they went in and they were able to find the 2 people. They did it blindly. They had no ticks. Would they have been able to pull the folks out faster with thermal imaging cameras? The answer is they very likely would have been able to. The long and short of it is faster searches, get people out of buildings faster, out of the smoke, out of the toxic environment faster. The current use in Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County, they have gone to these new thermal imaging cameras on each seat. One of the departments bought 1,000 of them. One of them bought 1,500 of them. The numbers they're giving are that their searches are being completed 50% faster than they were prior. That comes over the radio when we say that we've got a primary search clear. So from the time a unit arrives on scene to the time they're on the radio saying a primary search is clear, that is a huge hurdle for us. That is a huge hurdle for us when we show up on a fire. So more ticks allows that to happen faster. So let me just pass these around a little bit. I'll turn them on. You all can compare and contrast them a little bit, and then I'll pass it back over. We actually have a video here of Chief House talking for about 4 minutes, and then we'll pass it back over to Director Rosali. So we have 2 ticks here, and when you look through them, you'll see the best thing to do is to look at the people in the room to see the temperature differences. That's what ticks pick up on. You can point them at the lights, you'll see a little bit of a temperature difference there. Again, we use them for a bunch of different things, but searching for people and life is the primary thing that we use these for.
Not alive, yeah.
Smells.
It does smell. That one was used in live fire today.
Oh, good.
It got cleaned. One of the great differences between these is that the Seek tick, the orange one, the screen is almost as large as on the ISG, which is the older model, but the Seek tick is much lighter and very easy to carry. It is quite heavy. Given that we,
Electrical work,
what's that?
electrical work,
Yeah,
yeah, check the panels and the switch gear.
we do use it for that as
Yeah,
well.
that's what we
We do use it for that as well. Gee.
It looks like a wildlife camera at nighttime.
It does. What's great about it is the view is basically the same when you're in a smoked out environment. So again, if we couldn't see each other right now in a smoked out environment, if I have the tick, I can locate you right away, make my way over to you, and get you out of the building immediately. That's the value of having a tick. Thank you. With that, I'll go ahead and turn the video on from Chief House, talking a little bit about the Seek ticks.
All right, Adam House, Assistant Chief, Director of Training, Safety and Health. I'm here to talk about ticks a little bit, and we're looking at going with the new streamlined, smaller, advanced tick, new on the market. Here's our old tick. You can see it's quite cumbersome and bigger. New tick, a lot smaller, same exact technology, a little more advanced, quite frankly. And we're talking about the new Seek portable tick. Price frame, we're talking about $10,000 for this current version to replace it, about $600 for the Seek tick. And our plan is to go from 1 on an engine, 2 on a truck, to 4 on a truck, 3 on an engine, 1 per riding position. And what the advantage of that is we're able to search a room for victims, downed firefighters, or any potential trapped personnel a lot quicker with having multiple ticks on scene, multiple ticks in the environment. We're getting initial reports from some of the Southern California departments that their primary search rates are about 50% faster by having a tick in everybody's hand. Technology, really the same technology, same exact engineer built both ticks. This one's newer on the market, has great refresh rate over this one, able to refresh the picture that we're looking at a lot faster. Obviously portable, handles water and heat very well, and so far the feedback from our crews in the last 2 days of live fire training is they would all like to have them, and it's a good product for us to purchase.
Chad Dillon, Metro Fire, Truck 50 on B. Today I had the opportunity to use Seek Thermal. We had a live fire drill today. I like this tick a lot better than our current one, simply because it didn't die on me today. It's a lot less cumbersome. Hangs right here, I hardly know it's there. My search went really quickly. 900 square foot house, searched in about 30 to 45 seconds. Yeah, it's really nice, and I like it a lot better than our current tick.
All right, some of the pros, obviously right off the bat you can see a size difference. So this thing's attached to me on a lanyard, hands free. This one I'm usually tied up with it being in my hand if it is strapped to me. Cumbersome, gets in the way, beats me to death, can get trapped onto items, less chance of this newer small version to get trapped or trapping us. This has been referred to as a doorstop when it doesn't work. This one, when it doesn't work, although we're not having any failures yet, this one probably won't be used as a doorstop. When we're climbing ladders, this thing gets in the way, gets in between the rungs. Experience right now, these are not getting hung up on ladders. On top of the roof, we're having multiple ticks inside of each other's hands. Doesn't get trapped into the saw. Lighter weight, doesn't beat you up to death. This also decreases our overall weight that we're having to carry over our overall equipment that we add on to ourselves in totality.
Hi,
and Dr. Stephen Rosser, a cardiac surgeon who works with the fire department. And the fire department's trying these small miniature ticks, that's thermal imaging cameras. From a medical standpoint and from a life safety standpoint, if this is very functional and every firefighter has it, it could definitely save lives. Every second that a victim spends in a hot thermal environment, inhaling hot gases and carbon monoxide is very detrimental, and the faster they can be found and rescued makes a huge difference in their viability. Burns, the same thing. And in addition, if this allows every firefighter to be more efficient in his job, and he has to spend less time in that dangerous environment, that can be very helpful. So the fire department will look and see what the worth of this is, and hopefully it will help save some lives.
Questions? Going to ask technical questions, believe me, this is the time, because he'll be answering. After this, I'll be answering, and you know the difference.
Well, thank you. Any questions from the group? No questions from the group? Please.
So Randy, can you describe I see the handout that you gave us, and it seems to me like the amount of money we're talking about is not very large. And I'm assuming that, like when we buy our apparatus, we can get into a purchasing program potentially where large fire agencies that are buying 1,000 of these units, or what I think is what we heard, we could get in on that purchase so it would drive down the cost even further? Or is that something that's being investigated and a potential for us moving forward?
It is, and in addition to that, these items would be, normally we would be looking for like federal grant funding for
Right.
this. These are in the queue, however, what I'm told is that queue will take 3 to 5 years to get them qualified. And so we want to launch this initiative now. If that happens at some point in the future, wonderful. But right now, with the kind of results that are being posted, I'd like us to move forward as quickly as we can. And I agree with you that in the grand scale, this is not a large amount of money. They mentioned a reference in here to the cost. The larger model was $10,000. These are, and they mentioned $600, but they're actually $750 a piece. And I would like to commend and thank Sue Frost, the supervisor, for her initial purchase. She came on board immediately when I presented this to her. She personally purchased the first 2 of our Phase 1 implementation. So we are looking for 19 more to fund to complete Phase 1. So with that, I want to invite, challenge, whatever the word is, each of our board members to join us in looking for opportunities for agencies, individuals, corporations, whatever it is, to help us fund Phase 1. We'd like to set 90 days as a goal to fund that. And so the way that this is going to happen, we're in the process of setting up a GoFundMe campaign. We have a direct deposit mechanism in place on our website, and we'll be looking for you to get in contact with me, let me know about people who might have an interest in this, and I don't want to deny you the opportunity to personally donate. I would feel bad about that.
I'm sure
So-
you would.
So with that, are there other questions? There isn't any action to be taken except to make you aware of this and tell you that I appreciate your time very much.
Randy, one other thing, Mr. Chair, if I could.
If you will.
While I appreciate the doorstop analogy, I hope that as we replace the older units, that we have a very specific plan of where those can go. Because even though we look at them as old technology and and weighted and all the other descriptors, I'm sure there's agencies that would love to have that tool as well. So I think the story might also include, as we replace these with the new units, this is where the older units are going to go
Great point.
and benefit another organization that's 5 years from even being able to get a tick like we have currently. I think that might help as part of the story of this tick.
That's a great point, Grant. Thank you for that. And I'm going to put in a pitch for the Wheatland, Wyoming Fire Department because they cornered me during last deer season in a fill the boot campaign in an intersection that's about 20 feet wide, and did a heck of a job of extorting money from me. So if we get the opportunity to send a tick someplace, I'll contact those guys and ask them. So
Thank
with
you.
that, any other questions? I so appreciate the time. Captain, thank you so much for your efforts. I would also tell you that we have made one presentation to the Firefighters Burn Institute already, and we will be doing others as they come along in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Moving on to presentation item number 2, the Mobile Integrated Health Program Pilot. Captain Perryman.
Good evening, Chief Harms, Directors. I'm Barbie Law, and I am your Assistant Chief and EMS Director. Tonight, we're here tonight with a presentation on the Sacramento Mobile Integrated Health Pilot Project. I'd like to introduce Captain Scott Perryman. Scott's also a paramedic and a physician assistant, and Brian Jensen with the Hospital Council. We're going to have Chief Harms kick this off for us, and then Scott can dive into the presentation for you. Oh, and I did want to add, we're doing a presentation item tonight, and we will be coming back to you within the next couple of meetings as an action item on this so we can get moving forward. But we wanted to make sure that we answered all of your questions and presented the program for you tonight.
Good evening, Directors. The EMS Act of 1973 was the legislation that started EMS delivery. In 1980, legislation was put in place that we still follow today, which provides the governance of EMS and the way we deliver EMS and the way that we work under a physician's medical license while we were doing that. And then since then, over the last 40 years, there's been a number of advances that you look at the way that we have as far as equipment and tools, changes in medication, the amount of training that has happened. But one thing is that we still consistently respond, take care of the emergencies and transport people usually always to an emergency room. Probably maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, Chief Johnson came to you and talked to a lot of you about a mobile integrated project, mobile integrated health. And at that time, we partnershiped with the city. I see Deputy Chief Nico King is here. And over the last 4 years, they worked really hard for being able to, what are the opportunities to really, what we've said is, what do we give our members additional tools in their toolbox for being successful? Well, a lot of the calls we go on still fall under the 1973 initial act and expectation. The service we deliver today has become much wider, whether it's mental health challenges, alternative destinations for people, issues that really, when you look at it, don't need to end up in an emergency room. But one of our challenges has been, that is the tool that we have. We were able to partnership together, and today our staff here is going, and Brian's going to bring forward a pilot program. And we've put a lot of effort into setting expectations. What is the funding mechanism for it to be? what are we going to do, and how are we going to make a difference? And I think that's key, is that for the pilot, we want to be able to look at it, measure it, and say there's a positive outcome on the other end of it. The funding mechanism through the Hospital Coalition really puts the responsibility for the action on us, but does not have a financial impact onto the district. The last thing was that I just want to talk about, we had an opportunity earlier this week. I was down in Southern California. There's a new statewide director, Dr. Duncan is his name, and he spoke to the fire chiefs about being the new director and coming in, and some of his vision he had for moving forward. And one of the challenges that we have had, and I'll be just straightforward, is some of the legislation and some of the EMS agencies or the administrative agencies not allowing us to move forward. But he had a number of things that he talked about. He talked about us being one California. He called it the 4 C's: communications, cooperation, collaboration, and transparency. So he was pretty good, yeah. He talked about innovation and where are we at today and moving forward. But one thing that when I was listening and lines up directly with today is, out of his 3 benchmarks, one of his benchmarks is community paramedicine, mobile integrated health, and alternative destination. And I know it's been the work that folks have put in before Scott and myself and Barbie were involved has really set us up to get here today. But I really think we're at a point now where we're going to be able to be a pilot in the northern portions. There's been some pilots in the southern that have been successful. We really will be the first real pilot here on the northern end of California. So thank you. As Chief Law said, it's a presentation. We'll come back with an action item in October, and I'll let Captain Perryman take it from here.
I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty nervous right now. I don't know how many cookies you have to eat to get over your nerves, but apparently it's more than 6. Let me just start with good evening. As you heard, I'm Scott Perryman. I'm one of your captain paramedics. I'm also a physician assistant. I'm the proposed Mobile Integrated Health Program coordinator. And I really am excited to spend some time tonight to explain some of the latest developments of this program. I wanted to start looking at the past. I think it's really important to look at where we've been and where we are hopefully headed with the future of EMS. As Marcus Gravery put it, he put it and said that a people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. So I'd like to look at some of that beginning. When you look at this slide, it's really quite interesting to realize that it really wasn't that long ago. In 1956, mouth-to-mouth was developed. That's just 63 short years ago. You look at some of the other benchmarks that paramedicine started in 1969. The American Medical Association didn't even recognize emergency medicine as a specialty until 1975. It's incredible that it really wasn't that long ago, but you look at where we've developed. Today, we've become a nation that when you call 911 for your medical emergency, you expect a paramedic and that they're there quickly. Well, we've become very good at our profession. Unfortunately, there have not been enough adjustments with changing issues. And so let's talk about some of those problems. Some of those problems are that most EMS systems, including California, require all patients who request 911 ambulance service that they're transported to the emergency department. That's regardless of whether they need an actual emergency department or could be treated at a different level. The only other option the patient has is a patient-initiated refusal of service. So EMS systems, they have no other tools that they can use other than an emergency department or a patient-initiated refusal of service. Many of the mental health patients, they need to be medically cleared before they go into a psychiatric facility. That forces them to go to the emergency room to be medically cleared. Once they are medically cleared at the emergency department, they can sit there and wait for days waiting for a facility to accept them. So when you have an emergency room bed that's supposed to be turned over every few hours, now that same bed is occupied for days. That really ties up the emergency departments. Well, we also know that there's a shortage of primary care providers. That's no secret. And the demands put on those primary care providers is significant. So when you have a patient that has complex medical issues or has chronic medical issues that needs a little extra time or education or system navigation, they don't necessarily get that. 911 has become the safety net for our society. And so when patients, they don't have any other options, they call 911 because that is their last option. Again, diverting them to the emergency department or a patient-initiated refusal of service. So that leads to inappropriate uses of the emergency department, unnecessary ambulance transports, and readmissions into the hospitals because there's lack of appropriate care. And that diverts vital resources from actual emergencies. And this is all well documented. Well, we looked at the Sacramento region and we found out that we are higher in chronic diseases in every category, meaning like diabetes and CHF, when compared to the rest of the state. We're also higher in preventable hospital stays. And this came from the 2019 Community Health Needs Assessment of Sacramento County. So we have EMS providers, we're facing increased call volume, increased lower acuity incidents, increased psychiatric patients, lower reimbursement, and increased wall time. It's kind of difficult to face. We're sending highly trained paramedic engine and truck companies with an ambulance on nearly every medical emergency. That includes sore throats, medication refills, and other low acuity incidents. So, in short, we don't have the right tool for the job.
Oh, jeez.
I love that slide because that's kind of what it is. We don't have the right tool for the job. And so I would say that I've kind of talked about enough problems tonight. Why don't we talk about some solutions that are innovative, lasting, and sustainable? So we realized quickly we're not the only ones facing these issues that I've discussed. It's a growing nationwide problem. So in 2015, Anaheim Fire Department started their program. Their pilot program, what they did is they had an advanced provider, a nurse practitioner, and they joined forces with a captain paramedic, and they went on low acuity 911 calls. The beauty of it is an advanced provider, such as a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, has the ability to diagnose, has the ability to write prescriptions, has the ability to talk provider to provider, and has the knowledge and the license to correct patients and get them to their correct resources. Well, it wasn't long after that, in 2016, that LA City Fire Department decided to start their pilot, focusing on low acuity 911 calls, but also at their high homelessness and mental health population. They hope to have 14 units up and running within the next 2 years. They currently have 5 and have funding for the 6th. Those programs that I discussed, yeah, they're specific to California, but there's been other programs, similar programs throughout the nation. They've all worked very well. And so after talking to these programs many times, it makes you say, how would a program work here? What would it look like here? So what we did is we looked at those things. Some of those things that we looked at is we found in our incident data some significant things. That first one was that we have 538 individuals who've called 911 6 or more times in 2018. We also found that we have that out of those 538 individuals, the top 25 accounted for 711 911 incidents. And that's not even including John Doe. We took John Doe out. That's a lot of calls. And it's not that these people don't need help, it's just that they're using the wrong tool for the job over and over. Now, the data also shows that we have over 16,000 low acuity 911 incidents in our run area. Mental health continues to be a growing problem. And there's difficulty with system navigation and access to mental health. So to address these areas, we'd put a seasoned firefighter paramedic with a nurse practitioner or physician assistant and try to address those issues. So the proposal is simple. It's quite simple. We'll launch a community care response unit pairing a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant with a Metro firefighter paramedic. And they will serve those with a history of extraordinarily high use of the emergency department or EMS. And we'll consult with the healthcare systems to find the correct data on those individuals. And then we'll go out there in a proactive phase, trying to help them find the best access and the appropriate resources for their medical needs. Once phase 1 is up and running and is running in full stride, then we'll start phase 2. Phase 2 would go after the low acuity 911 incidents, essentially like an urgent care on wheels. They'd be able to take care of minor cuts that may include stitches. They can go on headaches, diabetic issues, or other sick or ill patients. The options can be wide, and in other systems that are well established, they've been a significant help to law enforcement and community and health needs. An agreement, I want to make it known that an agreement has been made with the Sacramento County Emergency Medical Services Agency that we will not move on to phase 2 until phase 1 shows itself to be running smooth and has a track record of safety. Well, the one that I haven't talked about yet was phase 3 would address mental health. Mental health is a big component to this. We realize that there's going to be a significant amount of time spent on system navigation and helping patients get to the correct facility the first time and help them get to extended care facilities. So to optimize these 3 areas that I talked about, the high utilizers, the low acuity 911 calls, and the mental health, we realized that we need to get it all together. And the way to do that is we looked at a coalition together. We designed it and called it the Sacramento Health Information Partnership. We needed to get systems to communicate together. So what we did is we looked at the California Association of Health Information Exchanges. We looked at their guidances that they gave us, and together we came back with the Sacramento Health Information Partnership. And it's a focused approach to improve interoperability and enable the exchange of health information between providers in the Sacramento region. Now, we're able to do this using existing data agreements without any significant upfront cost, and it's a technology that's already there. This approach will allow meaningful data to be exchanged and to show whether this program is successful. And if it's not, well, a proposal of this magnitude would be absolutely foolish not to get others involved and use their expertise. That is why we have collaborated extensively with multiple groups. We have the support of our local 522, Dignity, Sutter, UC Davis, Kaiser. We have many public and elected officials. We have the support of the American Nurses Association. Many of them are here tonight in support of this pilot, and we appreciate them. Metro Fire will operate the pilot with no financial impact on Metro. Startup funding has been contributed by the local health systems, and I'd like to mention them specifically by Dignity Health, Sutter Health, UC Davis Health, and Kaiser Permanente committed to year 1 funding. The hospital council already has money ready to use for this pilot in anticipation of a total of $1.47 million. Together with a partnership, we are looking to secure sustainable sources for this continued pilot or for this continued program. Now, what I didn't mention is we would like to contract out the services for an advanced level provider. This is so there's a professional who knows the laws and the liabilities and the regulations for those advanced level providers. And they'd also be able to have expanded liability insurance. I think that's important. Here's the thing. We know that, of course, 1 unit is small in a system our size. We had anticipate that there's going to be challenges and changes as we look at our specific needs that we're going to need. And we also know there's going to be challenges because, of course, it's a change from the norm. So here's what we know. We know that this pilot will expand our tools and better meet the needs of our community right now. We know that this proposal addresses 4 of the top 5 community needs assessments, as shown in the Community Health Needs Assessment. And lastly, it wasn't raining when Noah started building the ark. Pre-hospital system clouds are building rapidly. And what is Metro Fire building to weather the storm? It's my belief this is a great start. Now, before I open to questions, I'd like to introduce my friend Brian Jensen, who is the Regional Vice President for the Hospital Council of Northern and Central California.
We're in an expansion.
Que bueno.
The reason why we're inviting him to come is because he's been an integral part from the start, and he's been here from the beginning. So I'd like to give him a few minutes to speak.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It's a real pleasure to be with you. As Captain Perryman said, my name is Brian Jensen, and I represent the Hospital Council, which is an association of all the health systems. And what we do really is we convene healthcare leaders to come up with innovative solutions to very complex problems. Things that no one organization can really do by itself. The kinds of problems that are still problems because they're hard to fix. Not impossible, but it requires that kind of collaboration and alignment so that we can really start to make a dent. Now, Captain Perryman has really laid out the problems well. I have to tell you, I'm still waiting for the fake plastic shield they're going to give you with my own Metro Fire name tag, because I can't tell you how many hours I've spent in this very room and other adjacent rooms over the last 5 years developing this. Thank you, yeah. This has been a very methodical, thoughtful, collaborative approach involving everyone we can think of that has a stake in this problem and a a piece to contribute to the solution. It was summer of 2014 when Captain Perryman first came to a collaborative group that we convene every couple of months of emergency service providers. Many of our friends from AMR and City of Sacramento Fire Department and others who are in the audience today are part of those collaboratives. And we were talking about these same problems: wall times, congested emergency departments, the influx and real spike of behavioral health presentations, inappropriate usage of our emergency services, and the strain that both pre-hospital and hospital providers are under. And how do we come up with some solutions? Since then, we have had all the four large health systems in the room together with not only Metro Fire, but also some of the neighboring agencies, really working this problem and coming up with how do we adapt and adopt solutions that have been developed elsewhere to fit our community needs. I don't need to tell most of you this because more than one of you have asked me in the last year, Brian, when are we going to have this presented to us because we're ready to go? Why aren't you? Some of us have told this story together back in Washington as part of the annual Cap to Cap advocacy trip. So you know this story as well as I do, just about. This is a solution that's been long in the making. I just want to comment briefly on the process that we've gone through so that hopefully it maybe quells any concerns you may have in how we got here and why it has taken some time to get here. This is the kind of solution that's been developed in other parts of the country. Usually it's been an agency, perhaps in conjunction with a hospital, to do this kind of thing. We're a metropolitan area of 1.5 to 2 million people. We have multiple large health systems, and we've had multiple fire agencies at the table doing this. Trying to build something that, frankly, can be scalable and replicable, because I see a vision in which 5 to 10 years from now, this is not a pilot program that seems kind of like the new thing that we haven't tried before. This will be a part of what we do. Because as Captain Perryman pointed out, there are a lot of people whose problems, their healthcare problems, are not being resolved with the existing system. Why do they call dozens of times a year, multiple times a day? Sometimes it's psychosocial reasons, sometimes it's relatively simple primary care type issues that they are not accessing the solutions for in other ways. And this is taking them by the hand, meeting them where they are, and helping them make some lifestyle changes, educating them on their disease process, connecting them with the other resources that exist, because there are a whole bunch of providers of social and medical services in our community who do amazing work for people. This is about alignment. This is about connection. This is taking all those puzzle pieces that are scattered on the table and starting to fit them together. And this has been a missing piece. We have collaborated largely with Sacramento County, from the Board of Supervisors through Public Health and the LEMSA. And everyone's on board. And in fact, the senior leadership of all the health departments in the county committed to us this week that they will be part of an advisory group where we're going to be meeting every other month and helping guide and develop and seeing how do we measure success, how do we track it, how do we make adjustments, how do we really meet the needs of our community. And I will forewarn you that when we come for your approval in a couple of weeks, even 6 or 12 months from now, you will not feel a difference. Wall times are not going to fall through the floor. Hospital emergency departments are not going to suddenly clear up. But what we will do in prototyping this as a solution that can teach us the lessons we need to know so we can eventually scale solutions that actually will be felt in the community. And we're confident that this is going to be the case. The fact that you have agencies like Los Angeles saying, this is part of our future, and investing heavily in it, I think is clear evidence of that. I'm more than happy to respond to any questions you have, but I'm very excited, and I want to compliment your staff. They have been very, very committed. Chief Harms, Assistant Chief Law, Captain Perryman, Assistant Chief Johnson previously, have put a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And building the partnerships in the community that really have represented you well, because they've connected with all the other relevant people. We've talked to the Medi-Cal managed care plans. We've talked to the Medical Society. We've talked to the federally qualified health centers. We've been presented at a couple of conferences, and your agency has represented you very well. So with that, I thank you for your time and look forward to your approval in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Mr. Perriman?
Thank you. I want to defer some time over to Chief Harms before I answer any of your questions. Chief Harms?
I think that everything has been covered, and it's now open for you all to, I'm excited about moving forward with the program. We'll bring it back to you soon, but it's open for questions now.
All right, members of our board, questions? Surely, Director Gould?
How you doing? You did fantastic, by the way. 6 cookies or whatever you said.
Try 7, right?
Actually, really worked out well.
It's gotta be more
First off,
6.
let me tell you how proud I am of all of you guys, because this has been a big lift, I'm sure, to change something so significant in our system. You know, what is it? They say 150 years of tradition, unimpeded by progress, blah, blah, blah. But you guys are really at the cutting edge, and kudos to all the agencies that have been involved. And I think we've seen, how often do you get to see 4 major or 5 major healthcare systems even allow their logos to be on the same slide deck? So that's pretty awesome, and kudos to all of you. I'm a big fan. I wish we could go to phase 3 right away. The only thing that I would wonder about is, have we identified a professional researcher that will track this project from the very moment we get our first call? Because you are establishing a new way of business in this industry, and there needs to be scientific literature that is written to support the build out of this and scale to the entire state. So I hope that in your funding mechanisms and how you've worked your budgets, a professional researcher has been identified that will ask all the probing questions, know where the data sits, and can immediately start writing research articles that further refine what we need to know that we don't know, and get the literature out there that says this is something that the science supports. Because as you all know, in the healthcare field, it's science-driven change, and if we don't have science, then we can't help the fire agencies in these communities change. And so I just hope that as you built this thing up, there's somebody you are the researcher, and you're going to ask all the hard questions, and you're going to write up all the really geeky, literature about this. So that would be the only thing that I would encourage, and I'm sure you've got a ready answer.
Yes, we do. The answer is yes.
See how easy that was? Okay, anybody else?
Director Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, back in 2016, Captain Perryman, you and I were in DC, and with Assistant Chief Johnson and a few others, and it's just really impressive to see where this has come since we were in that stage of staying up late and talking about the various formulations that it could take. It's really exciting to see this, and I think I know with the work you've done in this, I think you need to be recognized for it, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Those were good times.
Any other questions, board members?
Good job.
I too would like to thank you all for making this presentation to us tonight. It's something that I remember when it was first talked about, and it makes such perfect sense to be able to do something, and it's wonderful that we're going to see some progress here, very real progress in the near future.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you, folks.
All right, moving on to our action items, we have the fiscal year 2018 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Award, AFG Award. Ms. Castleberry.
Good evening, directors. I'm here tonight to request that the board approve the acceptance of a fiscal year 18 Assistance to Firefighters grant in the amount of $162,150 for flammable liquids bulk storage specialty training, which I don't know anything about, however, is quite important for our foam operations team. A couple years ago, we were awarded an AFG grant for similar training. Since that time, we have actually deployed a secondary foam unit, and so this is additional training for that secondary unit. So unless there are any other questions, I would ask the board to accept the grant and move forward the budget amendments associated.
Thank you. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I'd move the resolution.
I would second it.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Do we need any special wording? No?
No.
Excellent. Would you please call the roll?
Dr. Sailors?
Aye.
Gould?
Aye.
Orzali?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
And Kelly?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, directors.
And we will deal with item 2 after we get out of closed session. All right. At this time, would you like to do the reports? Send these folks home. No president's report. Fire chief's report.
Lots of talking tonight. Good evening, directors. We've had some promotions, new hires. As far as promotion, on September 13th, Fire Inspector number 1, Christina Anna. We hired some new fire inspectors, Stephanie Young as an Inspector 1, and a new help desk technician, Ethan Foster. Welcome them aboard. Was able to attend the annual California Fire Equipment Swap, which is behind Station 21 on the 15th. The Pioneer Hook and Ladder has it out there every year, and was able to go out and spend some time with them personally. We had a meeting on the 19th with the Joint Defense Council, in which we again discussed the EMS and changes that are happening right now, and a number of legislative changes that are moving forward that are very pro-fire in EMS service delivery. We had a executive staff meeting with myself, the deputy chiefs from Metro, along with the chief from the city and his deputy chiefs to talk about operations and consistency as we move forward. And I was able to spend a couple days earlier this week down in Ontario, in which the Cal Chiefs Conference and the Metro Chiefs met down there. And this is the first year that we had the Metro Chiefs medical directors come down and meet and talk about what things are happening across the state and how we become aligned together as a group. On Saturday morning at 11:30 is the annual California Firefighters Memorial Ceremony. That's down at the Capitol Park, right behind the Capitol. We'll have a number of our apparatus and members down there honoring the brothers and sisters who sacrificed in dedication and lost their life in the line of duty. The last thing that I have on here is October is the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and November is the Men's Health Awareness Month. As we've done in the last few years, we'll be wrapping a engine, along with Chief Vestal has a few other things that he is doing as far as the awareness. And so we'll have October and November, just a number of activity around the district, looking really at all cancers and male, female, and overall health. That ends my report, unless you have some questions.
Any questions of the chief?
Mr. Chair, the ceremony for the Firefighters Memorial is this Saturday?
Yeah, this Saturday, 11:30, right behind the Capitol.
Any other questions? Moving on then. Thank you for your report, Chief Harms. Operations report, Chief Bridges.
Good evening, Directors. Eric Bridge, Deputy Chief Operations. Again, it's my privilege to brag about the hard work of the members over the last few weeks. One of the bigger fires that we had was last Friday. That was a mutual aid type of fire with CAL FIRE and Roseville and Rockland and many others over there off of Alberta, just west of the Watt Avenue area, where we burned up over 600 acres. It was a heavy coordinated fire. We had CAL FIRE brought 3 tankers for lots of airdrops. Copter 1 was there, Dozer was there. We had 3 chief officers and over 12 of our we call pump and roll apparatus out there. So very well done by all the members from all the agencies. It put up a pretty impressive column. Some of you may have seen it. Fortunately, there were no injuries, and it was a good job. And I don't believe we lost any structures to that either. Good, thank you, Chief Mitchell. Nice job out there. In addition to that, we've had several structure fires in the last couple of weeks. But just to put things back into perspective about the busyness of what we do. So I'll get some numbers for you. Again, our average, what we average a day at Metro Fire is about 250 calls a day. Actually, that's rising. It was been 250 for a while. It's up around 260 a day. So as we look at that, last week when we took a snapshot of our run volume, measured from the 15th of September through the 22nd, we ran over 1,800 calls that week. So when you do the math, you're up there right around 260, 270 calls a day. Busy days, we run about 18 or 19 calls for about 7 or 8 of our engine companies, and about 8 or 9 of our ambulances will run about 18 calls a day as well. Last week, engine 53, engine 24, and engine 41 were the busiest. And they were doing about close to 90 calls for the week. And then our top medics units again are Medic 23, Medic 21, Medic 105, Medic 53, Medic 24. They're all the same ones over and over again. Those areas are consistently running and putting up high numbers, close to 20 runs a day. So again, they're doing a fantastic job. We've been leaning with AMR's been helping us out quite a bit too during these times as the call volumes continue to increase. We're continuing to find ways to help provide extra resources out on the street. So sometimes we'll do that with some of our in-service reserve medic units too. So busy times, but again, I do want to thank our members. They're doing a fantastic job out there, and they are working hard. And that's all I have for you today, unless you have any further questions.
Any further questions for Chief Bridge? No? Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to committee and delegate reports, or excuse me, we have Firefighters Local 522 report.
Thank you, directors, Chief Arms staff. I'll be brief tonight, but obviously an impressive display of things going on at Metro Fire. Members of 522 and working in conjunction with the staff presented a couple pretty impressive things: the mobile integrated health, the ticks. So I think it speaks volumes of where we're at as an agency. People are stepping up, doing those things, top to bottom. From the people in logistics and the administrative service personnel, it takes all of us to get that stuff together. So the vast majority of the employees and members of Metro Fire are members of 522. So very proud to represent them to you. One thing I just wanted to bring attention to, I want to talk about a collaboration. We just had a bulletin go out today for a little schedule change with a single role program. We're going to try a pilot program. We're going to put them on a different schedule. It's going to, we believe, assist them in having a kind of better quality of life and also provide a better level of service out there and to the public, and provide a more steady level of service. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And finally, I want to also mention, I know the chief mentioned it too, but the California Firefighters Memorial on Saturday, it is truly what the fire service is all about. And I know we'll have members out there, but if you have a chance to make it out there just to watch that display, it's truly, it's a great special day, and it really is there to support the families whose loved ones are going up on that wall. So if you have the chance to make it out there, we have a nice presence out there from Metro. So thank you. Unless you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to committee and delegate. Moving on to committee and delegate reports. Nothing from the executive committee. Is Chief Wagaman here? Communications Center, JPA. Chief Bridge will cover.
Yeah, I'm just sitting in for Chief Wagaman. At the last Communications Center meeting we had on Tuesday morning, no action was taken. We do have a special board meeting here tomorrow morning at 9:30, and that's all I have.
All right. California Fire Rescue Training, JPA, Director, Deputy Chief Shannon, I have a note, no report. We'll report out during next board meeting. Finance and Audit Committee, we approved the budget 2 weeks ago, and so there was no audit committee meeting or finance and audit committee this evening. We will meet again later in October. Policy Committee, Director Gould.
Mr. Chair, our committee is in TBD.
Okey-doke. Board members' questions and comments. On my left.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank the presenters for their excellent presentations. It's always good to see that Metro Fire is in front or actually always ahead of other agencies in promoting better ways and more efficient ways to serve our community. I'm also looking forward to the Firefighters Memorial on Saturday. I attended it last year, I think it was, and it was excellent. It was something, and I hope most of our board members will be able to attend that event. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to just say thank you to the presenters. They were absolutely outstanding presentations today. And I do look forward to being able to take action on both of those programs. And lastly, just Chief Bridge, thank you for answering my question last Wednesday when I was in a moment of panic. Thank you.
Director Sailors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to have a big thank you go out to Engine 112 and Engine 111 and Medic 111. On Saturday, we had in Rio Linda our country fair, and they came out and helped me man the booth and hand out badges to the kids, and everyone in Rio Linda had a great time. And Engine 111 and Medic 111 were there for a first aid call, and they were very professional and handled it in a very gracious and understanding manner, considering the crowds that were there. So I just wanted to get a big thank you to them. And a big thank you to Sue Frost for purchasing the first 2 ticks for this program going out. Thank you to the presenters. Very good presentation tonight. Thank you very much, and that's it.
Director Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been already said, but I just want us to reflect on everything that we heard tonight was about the future. That really says a lot about all of you, that you're always thinking about what's coming down the road, not what we're doing today. And so it's been an absolutely excellent board meeting tonight to watch all of you present items that are about the future. So kudos, my hat's off to you. I'm very proud of all of you.
Director Arzali.
I'll be brief. I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Sue Frost again for kicking off this campaign, and we look forward to announcing the next purchase of ticks. And I also want to thank the Metro staff that has been helping with putting this together. So with that, thank you very much.
And I would like to mention that everybody's aware of the United Way, right? We used to have a gentleman that sat on this board that was a labor liaison to the United Way. Tom passed away, I'm thinking it's been about 8-9 years. Anyways, United Way is going to have a golf tournament in his honor. I think it's the 6th annual now or something, but nonetheless, look forward to playing in that next Friday. And then the ALF walk, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, is a walk that Walk to Defeat ALS will be taking place next Saturday on the 5th as well. So I hope that you all have a good evening, and we will proceed to closed session where we don't expect to see anybody here when we get back.
Very well.
All right, then we will call our meeting back to order. And Mr. Lauber, would you please report?
Yes, thank you, Director Kelly. The board met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 with respect to the industrial disability retirement claim of John Paul Savain. No reportable action was taken.
What's your pleasure with the disability retirement application from?
Make a motion.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I'll move the staff recommendation.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the disability or the industrial disability application.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Seeing no business before our body, we will proceed to close, huh? Meeting's adjourned.